We begin the second hour of Three-Man Front on this Wednesday. Hope everyone is having a good hump day so far. Pat, Molly, Landrum, Conrad out the rest of the week. He's filling in with Damian for the morning show. He'll be back with us on Monday. A lot of conversation about the North Carolina basketball job opening. That came official yesterday as Hubert Davis was fired at the University of North Carolina. A lot of big names up on the board. We'll see if Nate Oates gets a call. Perhaps, maybe not. We'll wait and see. His buyout will drop significantly come April the 1st. Currently, it's at $18 million. It will drop $8 million down to $10 million if a school would like to hire his services after April 1st of 2026.
All right, let me get Pat's Polymarket instant here. Kalen DeBoer, the rumors to Michigan for football. Nate Oates, rumors to North Carolina basketball. What's the likelihood? Who had the better likelihood of going where?
Kalen DeBoer to Michigan.
Okay. Just want to clear that up for any of our listeners who
That's an easy one.
Yeah.
Real easy.
Yeah. It's really easy if you're looking for someone to come and inspect your roof. A locally owned and operated company like Noto Roofing, they're doing it at our house. We're about to get a brand new roof on. Actually, yesterday, we got to pick out the shingles that we want put on the roof. There's all kinds of different designs, colors, styles, all of that. But our eyes have really been open, and it started with Chris in Noto Roofing coming to the house, doing the free roof inspection that they offer to all of our Jocks listeners, identifying an area, several areas where we had hail damage, we had wind damage. And what did that mean? That meant water was actually coming through our roof into our attic, and some of it was unbeknownst to us. We're not going to have to worry about it anymore. They're going to warranty all the work that they do at our house. It's Noto Roofing, N-O-T-O roofing.com, N-O-T-O roofing.com. They'll work alongside your insurance company to help you in the claims process. N-O-T-O roofing.com. Always tell them Landrum from Jock sent you.
We'll hope to catch up with Chris Stewart, the voice of the Alabama Crimson Tide, momentarily, as he and his team and the rest of the Alabama basketball program heading to Chicago to take on the number 1 seed Michigan Wolverines. Dusty May, someone that we were very familiar with here in Birmingham because he was an outstanding coach there at FAU, took his team to the Final Four. Yesterday he met with the media. This is what head coach Dusty May had to say about the scouting watching the University of Alabama.
What I've seen from the team, an elite playmaking group, very, very versatile. They shoot the ball really well. When they're on top of their game, they're rebounding it exceptionally well, especially the long rebounds. And then defensively, they've taken a step. They took a jump forward lately. And I think one of the reasons they've struggled at times this year just because they've had so many different lineups and they've had multiple short-term injuries where they just haven't had one group together with any consistency. They're going to take good shots. They're not going to shoot a lot of contested mid-range shots. They're going to try to get to the rim, and they're going to try to shoot threes, and we're going to try to do a good job of keeping their shots from going in.
That is Dusty May kind of giving his thoughts on this Alabama basketball team. We all know that obviously LeBaron Philon averaging close to 22 points a game, but he's also supported by 3 more players that's averaging in double figures. Reitzel, 13.1 points per game. Amari Allen, 11.6. Aiden Sherrell's really come on second half of the year, 11.2 points per game. The problem with Alabama is when you're not hitting those outside shots, it did a really good job against Texas Tech by pulling down those long rebounds. Alabama ranks 287th in the country in defensive rebounding. That's problematic when you go up against a team that is very talented down low, especially that of Michigan. I went back and I looked at a couple of things with Michigan's defense. So there's been a handful of games this year in which Michigan has been torched from the three-point line. One of their losses was to Wisconsin. They played Wisconsin twice. Wisconsin made 15 three-pointers, and they made 16 three-pointers against Michigan. Howard hit 14 three-pointers against Michigan. But let's just be honest, that game was well out of hand, and obviously Howard was in desperation mode. That's why they hit 14. Maryland hit 16. Minnesota hit 12. Nebraska hit 11. Now, Michigan's won the majority of their games this year, no matter how many three-point shots they give up. But that just kind of gives you an idea, especially Wisconsin. Wisconsin really gave them problems this year in the two times they played them, hitting 15 three-pointers and 16 three-pointers. So it'll be interesting to see how Michigan attacks the Alabama perimeter.
And we've been told, it's not necessarily true of Nate Oates' Alabama team, live or die by the three. There's other ways they can get it done. But against this particular Michigan team in this matchup, Alabama's going to, I'm not going to say make an insane amount of threes. They're not going to have to make 19 maybe or 25 like they did against BYU a couple of years ago. But you can't have one of those 7, 8 three-pointer nights. Where else is the scoring going to come from with all the bigs that you're going to have to face?
Now, it's a great point. Michigan ranks second nationally in two-point offense. Now, let that sink in for a minute. They hit 61.5% of their shots inside the three-point line. Second best in the country. They're also 47th nationally in offensive rebounding. So when you do miss one of those bunnies, they got a guy that's around the rim that potentially is going to put up a second shot. So
there's a good chance on a miss you're not getting that rebound, and it's going back the other way.
And by the way, they're not too shabby on two-point defense as well, limiting the opponents to 44%.
Well, look what he's got to work with there in the lane. It's shooting fish in a barrel.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
I mean, you throw it into Yaks, he turns around. It's almost like we saw at times with Janai Broome last year. Once you get it that deep, you can foul him or just try to be friends with him because he's going to score.
It's interesting because Dusty May and Nate Oates go way back. And a lot of people might not know this. But take a listen to what Dusty May had to say yesterday about the long relationship that he has had with Nate Oates.
My history with Nate is when I was an assistant coach at Eastern Michigan, I was a young assistant and still trying to learn the profession and whatnot. And Nate was at Romulus and had 6 a.m. workouts. So I'd go over and watch his team work out. We talk ball. We actually went and spent a week at 5 days at Chicago Bulls training camp with Scott Skiles. Nate and I and Josh Baker and a friend of mine from Indiana that worked for the Bulls got us in and gave us full access. And we've been friends since then. And then he goes to Buffalo and works for Danny White, who was close with the White family. So a lot of connections. And then I still go every year down to his coaching conference. And we've shared a lot of thoughts. I've learned a lot from Nate.
That is Dusty May. Always impressed with Dusty, even when he was at FAU, and we covered him, obviously playing UAB twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year, depending on how the tournament ended up. But Dusty's done a nice job there in Ann Arbor.
Not one of those personalities you pull against on the sideline.
No, not at all. And it pains me to say that about any Big Ten coach.
I know.
But you know what? I mean, can't find fault with Dusty May.
No.
I think he's a good dude, and obviously it's going to be hands are going to be full for Alabama on Friday night.
Can I actually say that the Michigan basketball coach and Michigan football coach actually like both of them?
That might be the first time in the history for me.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because I've always been a Whittingham fan. I've got a good friend of mine that worked for 20-plus years for Whittingham in Salt Lake City. So nothing but great things to say about him. So the Bama game, just a reminder, just in case, game's going to be seen on TBS. And that will be the first game tipping from Chicago coming up on Friday. That will be a 6:35 tip.
Who's on the call? Do you know? On TV?
I thought
we can figure it out.
Yeah, I thought I had that a moment ago, but I do not.
I know who's on the radio call.
That's the most important. Brought to you by Craneworks each and every week. The voice of the Alabama Crimson Tide, Chris Stewart.
Lift it, load it, grade it, grind it, move it, haul it, rig it, dig it, Craneworks, Rentalworks, yeah! The big dog's got it.
Crimson Tide Network's Chris Stewart on Three Man Front is brought to you by Craneworks. Lift it, buy it, rent it. The big dog's got it. And now, Chris Stewart.
Chris Stewart joins us now on the Higginbotham Hotline. Chris, the bag's packed. Had a couple days after the trip to Tampa. Hope you're well.
I am, and my apologies. Been trying to get everything going and was on a call, lost track of time, and I apologize. But glad to be with you guys.
It seems like with your affinity for liking to drive to destinations now with what's going on with our nation's airports, is this would be an opportune time for you to maybe to get in the family caravan and head up to Chicago.
My son's going to do that. I am actually flying up with the team on team charter this afternoon, so it'll be hopefully easy for him, but easier for me because we're about to fly out here in a couple hours.
All right, let's before we start talking about the Michigan Wolverines, I want to go back over the weekend in Tampa. Big win against Hofstra. And then the defense that I saw Alabama play against Texas Tech, I think that is everyone's going to walk away with all the 3-point shots. But for me, that was the story of the game, the perimeter defense and what Reitzel and the rest of the guys did from a defensive perspective. Just your thoughts from the weekend.
No, I agree completely. I thought the energy, the effort, the intensity, because this team wasn't shooting the ball great, guys. At the start of that game, they were struggling making shots. It's why they had so many chances for rebounds. But the fact that they owned the glass the way they did, extremely impressive. And I thought that, combined with the defensive effort, were the reason that they weren't just in that game, but the reason they were able to pull away in the manner in which they did.
You look at this Michigan matchup, Chris. We've all watched them all year. They are built for success, to say the least. Yeah. Where does it start with Nate Oates, this particular Alabama team, and attacking the Wolverines?
I think it's just being in attack mode on both ends, and it's playing the way they did in this last ball game that's going to give them the best chance. The team that we saw, the fire in their eyes, the energy, the effort, combined with making shots, obviously. But I think that is such a major part of no fear, not reckless abandon. I don't know if that's, I know it's a cliche, but I don't know if that's accurate. But to play with that same type of energy is absolutely necessary against a team that's built the way Michigan is. But I think they can give them problems. I think it's huge that there was time off between that last game and this one. Because if you remember the game against BYU last year, Alabama shot it so ridiculously well. And I think last year's game was one where if they had played against Duke the way they did BYU, they would have won against the Blue Devils, and all they had to do was play against BYU the way they did against Duke, and they would have won that one too. But they weren't as hot against Duke as they were in that previous game. I think having a chance to take a deep breath, regroup, resettle, and understand where you did have struggles, but also where you were your best, and to recharge and hopefully be able to play at that level is going to play a major role in this team being able to duplicate that effort.
Dusty May, yesterday, his press conference, I was watching that, and he pointed out all the things that impressed him about this Alabama basketball team. And he pointed out something that we have talked with you about each and every Wednesday on this show, and that's been the number of lineups that Nate Oates has had to use because of all the injuries and all the things that have happened to this basketball team. And Dusty May noted that, but he also pointed out that's why Alabama is playing its best basketball over the course of the last few weeks, is because this is the kind of lineup that obviously Nate has wanted to put out there on the floor. But from an injury standpoint and just the nicks and bruises, I assume, Chris, heading into this game against Michigan, it's all hands on deck, all is good to go?
Yeah. As the guys you expect to have available, the guys you did have available last week are the ones you're going to have available this week, and depth at guard, but also the resurgence, the fact that Taylor Bowen has been able to both practice and play and is at the best physically he has been all year. Noah Williamson playing like the Noah Williamson that you signed. Those are key pieces to give Aiden Sherrill some help and a breather. Whether you're playing Bowen with Aiden or whether you're playing him in place of or alongside, in that case, or in Noah's case, playing in place of Aiden, it gives you an opportunity to rest him so he can be better, sharper. And I just think what they're doing, around the rim and with their bigs, the help and improvements you've gotten there helps make this team one that's very, very dangerous going forward.
You're flying with the team here in a couple of hours up to Chicago. What's the plan, if you don't mind sharing with us and our listeners, for the next couple of days for you and for the team?
Yeah, for the team, which is what really matters, and will not match my plans. They will be going to work. They're going to get in and probably. I didn't see a schedule that had them practicing tonight, but I'm sure they will. Shooting at a minimum somewhere, maybe not, but I would think that they are. You've also got an opportunity to, go through a full practice tomorrow before the media session, get off your feet, and then play Friday at a regular time. I think 6:35 Central is when we'll get going, which means on the network we go at 5:30 Central. Play, hopefully win, celebrate, spend the next day going over film and getting ready for another Elite Eight game on Sunday night, which would be obviously an amazing accomplishment if you could find a way to get there 3 consecutive years.
It's also interesting with this matchup, Chris, and a lot of people don't think it's a big deal. I think it is, because every arena is different. Depth perception is different. Sometimes you got to play in big domes and stuff like that. But both Alabama and Michigan have played in the United Center. Now, obviously, Michigan played over the weekend at the Big Ten tournament, or I should say 2 weekends ago. Meanwhile, Alabama had the huge win against Illinois there in that building. So some familiarity in regards to that building for both teams.
No doubt. And I think, like you said, Michigan with more knowledge, more recent knowledge, but Alabama, having played there, having had a great experience there, and as LeBaron said to us in the post game after the win against, I'm drawing a blank, not Hofstra, but the Texas Tech game. Texas Tech. He said, we played in that building and, guys are all comfortable. And he said, we know what happened there. Because I think he went for 30, if I'm not mistaken, in that game. So he's well familiar with that place and knows what it's like. So I think they're all excited to be there. I know I am.
How upset were the Florida fans before the game got tipped off the other night after the Iowa loss?
Oh, goodness. I wouldn't pay attention to that.
Oh, no, not at all. You're a good Southeastern Conference guy. You would not pay any attention to that.
That was, I did not, pay any attention to the fact that as they were losing prior to our matchup at the same time, Tyler Fay was historically great on the Hill in Tuscaloosa.
Wasn't that something?
Throwing a no-hitter against them for the first time Bama's thrown a 9-inning no-hitter with one pitcher since 1942. Amazing, and then obviously the sweep the rest of the weekend in Tuscaloosa. No, I would be wrong of me to relish Todd Golden having a lack of success in a national stage like that a year after his team won the national title, deserving champions. But that would be wrong, and so I would simply say I didn't notice the crocodile tears that were being shed by the Florida fans.
You're a good Southeastern Conference brother. They appreciate that very much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It just means more family.
Yeah,
that's right.
It just means more.
16, it means 1. That's what it means.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, David Upton, good buddy of ours.
Yes.
He is being able,
yes. We do cherish his successes.
There is no question about it. And Crane Works, they bring us you each and every week here on this program.
Yep, they're the ones to blame. It's the most trusted name in crane and equipment rental in the Southeast for over 30 years. Fleet of cranes that range from 2.5 tons to 500. They've got trained and certified operators making sure the job is done right, with locations in Birmingham, Nashville, Mobile, and now in Huntsville as well. Visit craneworks.com for more information.
Chris, we always appreciate the visit. Safe travels with the team and get your money's worth. Let's go play 2.
Thank you, buddy.
All right, thank you.
I'm hopeful that'll be the case. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you. And sorry I was late.
No, you're good. We understand. That is Chris Stewart, voice of the Crimson Tide, presented by our friends at Craneworks on the Higginbotham Hotline. You deserve solutions that are built for you. Higginbotham's your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services.
Someone listens to the show yesterday at Social Taco. They asked me about Golston Tree Service. I've used Golston Tree Service numerous times in my yard, cutting down some oak trees and some other issues that I had on my property. They can help you. 205-337-4443. That's the number. Golston's licensed pros. They can handle everything from trimming to pruning to full tree removals, fast, safe, affordable. They're going to grind the stump out, and it's like your tree never existed on your property. Don't wait until that next storm causes you massive damage. Call Golston Tree Service, 205-337-4443. They have that 24-hour emergency tree service. So if something happens overnight, one of these spring storms pop up, they can take care of you immediately. 205-337-4443.
We just heard from Chris Stewart. Should Michigan be on upset alert? We'll break it down next on Three Man Front.
Coming up at the bottom of the hour, we'll talk to Rocco Miller from the field of 68, get his feelings on the North Carolina opening, also the Sweet 16. Landrum, you asked me a moment ago who the television announcers will be for the Alabama game. That would be Andrew Catalon, Steve Lapis, and Evan Washburn.
Oh, that's a good crew.
That is the crew that you will hear on the television side of things, as that game will be on TBS on Friday night.
Is that a hot ticket at the United Center?
I'm sure it will be. I'm sure Michigan will fill it up.
I'm looking at Get In right now. Trying to remember, what was it? Well, I don't know what I would compare it to. Let's see here. Okay. It's not crazy. You get all sessions for the low price if you want to sit really, really close for $5,322.
No, just that.
Yeah.
What are the ticket prices, Molly, for Iowa and Nebraska?
I honestly haven't looked. I need to check that.
Let's see. You got $515. Yeah. That's not a good seat. I don't know. It looks like it's going to be a pricey ticket. I would expect a lot of maize and blue to be there in attendance. Not too far of a drive. Plus, their team's really, really good, and I'm sure that they're expecting to be in the Final Four. Did they bring Hubert Davis back? That sound means there's breaking news here on the show. For more, we send it to the three-man front breaking news desk where Pat Smith is sitting by. Hello, Pat.
Good afternoon, Landrum. I know this will mean a great deal to you.
Yeah, if somebody else got injured from my baseball team, don't even say it. Just let me leave.
No, this has nothing to do with baseball.
Okay. Whew.
I'm not going to lie, I was worried for you.
Yeah, thank you.
The NBA Board of Governors, they have voted, they have authorized the league to formally explore potential expansion franchises for the cities of Las Vegas and Seattle.
Yay.
So 2 more NBA teams on the horizon. I assume Seattle will be called the Supersonics.
Bring back.
Oh, I hope so.
I remember
Yes.
the Sean Kemp, George Karl, get it done. The glove. Let's go. What was it Chewbacca? Who was the mascot that did all the dunks?
I guess that was
Sonic Chewbacca. It was a furry something.
You had the gorilla in Phoenix.
Yeah.
I guess it was Sasquatch or whatever
Oh,
it was.
was it? Yeah, it might have been Sasquatch. That's a good place to start. I
Yeah.
thought that you would know because you're
Because I'm such a Supersonics fan.
Well, you're a watcher. You're a Sasquatch watcher.
Well,
I
am
love that name. Bring
Seattle
it back.
Sonics.
Oh, the Supersonics. They were
Yes.
tremendous.
I did an event
Awesome.
from Key Arena. It was not too bad.
Yeah, they got it. It's now it's called Climate Change Arena or something.
Yeah.
I remember for years.
Squatch.
Yeah.
Squatch.
I remember for years, it was always Las Vegas will never have a pro franchise ever because of gambling.
Right.
Like, we can't do it. Can't do it.
Now is there a sport that they're lacking?
I mean, you got hockey, you got NFL, you've got the A's coming to town. Now you're going to have an NBA team, so they got it covered.
Yeah, WNBA, we got the Aces. I guess you threw them out.
Mm-hmm. Do you know the Seattle team name?
Seattle, the Storm.
Yes. Good job.
Give me another one.
That's the Orlando Storm, right? In the
Well, it's Orlando Storm too,
in
and
the
Thunder,
UFL.
and the Breakers. No, that was New Orleans.
By the way, the Orlando Storm, they have stolen our world famous statue as their logo.
Yeah, they
Vulcan.
have.
I sent that to you.
Yeah,
It's shameful.
it is shameful.
Yeah.
Wings.
Yeah.
Dallas.
Uh-huh.
The Dream.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Atlanta Dream.
There's
Liberty.
I'm trying Angel Reese's team.
The grand finale.
The Sky.
The Sky.
The grand finale.
Well, she was doing that. It's like the end of a dance number.
Yeah. All right, coming up next, we'll talk
right,
to Rocco Miller from the field of
We'll work on it.
68. That's next on Three Man Front. It is 11:33. Welcome back in. A lot of basketball talk today with the Sweet 16 coming up. Alabama taking on Michigan on Friday night in Chicago. We just talked to the voice of the Alabama Crimson Tide, Chris Stewart, as Alabama. They will fly out to Chicago a little bit later today. But joining us now, our resident bracketologist. He has led us through this basketball season, led us to the bracket. You can follow his work at bracketeer.org. Also, the Field of 68. They have been all over these breaking news stories left and right when it comes to college basketball, including last night, Hubert Davis stepping down. Not stepping down, actually. He was fired from the University of North Carolina. And so Rocco Miller joins us now as we'll talk about all of that straight ahead during this segment. Rocco, I hope you're doing well on this Wednesday.
Doing great, guys. Hope you're doing well as well. I'm actually pulled over right now on my way to San Jose for practices and interviews today throughout the day. Texas will be taking the court in about an hour, and we'll have all four teams with Purdue and Arkansas and Arizona. So excited because without Gonzaga in town, it's actually kind of quiet. So we're going to get a lot of coverage out of this and probably some really good seats throughout the week.
Rocco, you talked to a lot of basketball people, coaches. With the buzz about the North Carolina job opening, the potential of Bill Self evaluating things there in Lawrence, Kansas, if that job was to come open, what would be the more attractive job?
Ooh, great question. That is a great question. I think, obviously the Carolina job has so much prestige, and they both do. So it's really hard to compare. I think they're definitely in the same tier. I think with Kansas, you're in a slightly better conference because the Big 12 is heavy at the top. Of course, this year we had most of the year 6 elite programs. Then BYU fell off just a little bit, but there was certainly 5. ACC is pretty much still Carolina, Duke, with Louisville trying to crack that, and Virginia starting to maybe crack that group. But I guess if it was 50-50 and you had no other ties to either school, I would go Kansas just because the Big 12 is a tad stronger. But I think resource-wise, you could look at that both ways, right? Like in the ACC, you could be the more dominant team and win a lot more games that way if you believe in what you bring to the table. Like if you're a TJ Otzelberger, a Dusty May, or somebody very elite already in the sport, you're probably pretty confident in your ability to bring 29 to 32 wins to either place. But I think those are the only real differences, really, to me.
Rocco, I wanted to ask you about North Carolina and the resources, because we viewed the North Carolina job, and I know Landrum just asked you your thoughts on it, but we view it just like most people do the Alabama football coaching job. It's a blue blood. It's one of those jobs that when it does come open, you're going to get a lot of people have interest in that job. But I am curious about some nuts and bolts, and you might not know this answer, and you may, but just a ballpark from a North Carolina roster building standpoint, monetarily speaking, were the Tar Heels this year one of the top teams in the country? Where do they compare to the likes of some of the bigger names around college basketball, what they spent on their roster development?
Right. Now, that changes year to year, as we know, and something where, everybody's trying to tweak and adjust annually. So I know next year's numbers will be even larger across the board, especially at the top. But my best information was that North Carolina was in the 15 to 18 million range, which would rank top 10 in the sport. And Kentucky, of course, gets talked about all the time, around 22 million. Whether that's spot on or not is anybody's guess, but I think it's a good roundabout difference. Now, you would think blue bloods like Duke, Carolina, Kentucky, and Kansas should all be about the same, but it doesn't quite work that way when you're pulling money in from all different directions, including rev share now. So, but yeah, they're definitely one where I think every coach in America looks at it as not only is it a top 10 place for players to come earn money, but also for you to succeed and have the support system to succeed and the expectations to get to the Final Four, like basically each year. Not that it's realistic, but that's just how things go in Chapel Hill, much like Tuscaloosa for football.
He is Rocco Miller, bracketeer.org, and joins us on the Higginbotham Hotline. Alabama and Michigan, not too surprised that we get this matchup there in Chicago on Friday night, Rocco. But Alabama, your thoughts on what you saw, especially against Texas Tech, as far as from outside the arc, how they're playing right now, And does that kind of shooting have to continue at that rate to slay this big Michigan Giant?
Very impressive performance against Texas Tech. Yeah, I mean, I think they had some advantages with Texas Tech being thin, really only a 7-deep team, but I never would have expected a game to get that far away from a Grant McCaslin coach team. So all the credit goes to Alabama. They had a lot of guys really step up in that game, really sharing the wealth. Very, very cool to see an old friend of ours here in the West, Houston Millette, succeed in that game, and his dad, Wesley, who works at South Carolina, getting on TV all the time. He was a great player at Pepperdine, but to see him do it at this level is pretty amazing. And so, yeah, great effort across the board for the Tide. Now, when you look at Michigan, they're ginormous. It's a much different matchup from just a size and physicality standpoint. Obviously, Alabama's path to victory, you just laid it out. You nailed it on the head there with outside shooting and floor spacing. Michigan comes into the game with a top 30 defense against, perimeter shooting. They only allow about 30.5% to go in on the season. That's a long period of time. I know there's so much luck involved with that because so much of it is the quality of shot you can get. But I do think it's going to be a little more difficult to shoot over the outstretched arms of guys like Ade Mara and Yaxel Lendenberg and Morez Johnson Jr. and even Michigan guards are big guys, right? Like taller guards, lengthy, and can create some problems. Maybe Cadeau being the one exception there. He might be the guy to attack defensively. But I think they got their work cut out for them because I think Michigan has pretty obvious size advantages in the front court. And they like to play kind of that Gonzaga, Arizona style this year where they're going rim to rim. You saw it in Vegas earlier this year when they beat everybody by 30 plus. They did that quite a few times in the conference play. And, of course, they'll have the home court there in Chicago. So many Michigan alums living in the city. So it's going to be a very, very pro-Michigan atmosphere. The three-point shot will be the great equalizer. But I think Alabama will have to be near perfect, and they're going to have to come up with some good schemes to keep the ball out of the post as much as possible when Michigan is forced to play in the half court.
Rocco Miller, the bracketeer.org, also the Field of 68, joins us here on Three Man Front. All right, so you are in San Jose, and you're about to make your way. You're going to see some practice. Purdue, 2 seed, number 11 Texas. You also have number 1 Arizona and number 4 Arkansas. So I wanted to kind of hone in on the 2 SEC representatives that you're going to see up close and personal. 11 Texas, that has been a surprise because Texas, obviously down the stretch, played about 500 ball in the Southeastern Conference, got bounced out early in the SEC tournament. Playing real well now so far in the tournament, especially through that first 4. Your thoughts on them, and could there be an Achilles there for Purdue where the Longhorns can make it to the Elite Eight?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I think it starts with Matas Vodakidis from Lithuania, the 7-foot, 255-pound monster that transferred up from Florida Atlantic. He's a guy that I got to cover a couple times at FAU last year, and they loved him there as a project. And when guys, I say this all the time, when guys come over from Eastern Europe or anywhere in Europe, typically from any of the either the lower leagues of Europe or even the top leagues, college basketball is so much more physical, and the way it's officiated is so much more different. Like, it encourages physicality. It takes so many of the European guys a year to adjust, and I think him playing in the American and getting his feet wet and also still being able to demonstrate all of his amazing capabilities, whether it's passing the ball. Obviously, he's an elite rebounder, and he creates a lot of different floor spacing opportunities for the rest of the Longhorn offense. He's really evolved here in year 2, and that's typically what I see from like the great European college players is they need that second year. So Texas really benefits big time from a lot of the hard work and dues he paid last year at FAU, and you saw what he did against BYU. I think it was his big game, the 23 points, 16 rebounds, really the man in that game, and really followed that up with 17 and 9 against Gonzaga. Helped neutralize Graham Ike, of course, a legendary all-time Gonzaga player. And so now you look at the matchup with Purdue, and you're thinking, okay, Trey Kaufman-Renn, Oscar Clough, big guys, but not the most physical. Like, I felt like St. Louis had, or sorry, not St. Louis, it was their last opponent was, why am I blanking on this? their last opponent had a great game plan on them, and Braden, it was Miami.
Yeah, Miami.
Braden's, yeah. And Miami didn't have a guy as big as Matas, but what they were able to do was get those guys out of the paint with their physicality. I think Texas has the ability to do that, but they are going to have a plan for Braden Smith, because Miami, what they did so well is they got Braden Smith off the ball. They picked up full court pressure. I don't think Texas is going to play that way. They're going to try to maybe shut down Fletcher Lawyer and TKR and take their chances with Smith and Clough. So that's where I think the strategy of the game will be fascinating. But Texas, I think in those matchups with NC State, BYU, and of course Gonzaga, leveraging Matas in the middle has really been a huge key. And can they continue to see his growth develop right before our eyes here, game in and game out, will be a big factor if they can beat Purdue. But I think it'll be a good game. I really do. And I think one other thing that's really not been talked about enough is Texas, in a weird way, getting knocked out early of the SEC tournament actually got them rested and recovered, because they didn't have to play the rest of the week in Nashville. And I think that was really the only way they could get through those 3 wins last week, is they got to Dayton pretty fresh. Now, traveling out to Portland and winning twice, and now traveling back to San Jose, that we'll see if that's a challenge.
We get Alabama and Michigan in the 4-1. We get Arkansas taking on Arizona in the 4-1. Who should feel better about their chances of taking down a 1 seed? Should it be Nate Oates at Alabama or John Calipari at Arkansas?
I think it should be Arkansas, because they're playing so well. I mean, they just won the SEC tournament. They're rolling, and Darius Acup's the best player in the West region. You know, that's the one thing they have over Arizona. Now, Arizona, you could argue, is just as good as Michigan, if not better. We don't know. They didn't play each other yet, but they have a lot of weapons and a great front court, both teams. But I think with Arkansas, you've seen them now be able to handle Vanderbilt in the championship game, really get by a very good high point team they got a good test from, and just outlasted them down the stretch. And now I think Arkansas has got multiple pros on their team, just like Arizona. So Arizona won't have as many advantages in the matchup as they will against most of their Big 12 competition. I think we'll have athlete on athlete across the board. And you look at the Arizona defense is really the key. I think that's the least talked about thing about the Wildcats, is that they did have a top 3 defense throughout the year. They're very good at creating bad shot selection. So Arkansas, with as much ISO ball as they play, they're going to have to be very, very strong with their decision making on when to shoot the ball, and obviously that starts and stops with Acuff. So we'll see, but I just think athlete for athlete, pound for pound, Arkansas and Arizona shapes up to be a really good matchup. Arizona, obviously the edge with the stronger front court and the stronger defense, but I think Alabama needs kind of a perfect storm to win. So I would definitely be less surprised to see the Hogs advance.
And finally and quickly, wanted to get your thoughts on Tennessee. We like Tennessee. Obviously, they play very good defense, not as explosive offensively as in Alabama, but they do a really good job defensively. What about the Vols maybe surviving, getting to the 8 or maybe to the Final Four?
I think it's possible. Yeah, I think their draw is not easy. Obviously getting to Iowa State first off is going to be very tough. We saw what they did in the second half against Kentucky. But you look at the point guard and Jacoby Gillespie being a veteran. He made it this far last year. I know he wants to get further. When he was at Maryland, Nate Ament, we all know, is an elite prodigy, top 10 pick waiting to happen. JP Estrella has been pretty quality, especially in that Virginia win. In the middle, he throws his weight around at 6'11", 240. Felix Okpara is chiseled and cut out of a dream locker room physicality body prototype. And so with those 3 guys, Okpara, Ament, and Estrella all being 6'10" and above, they create some major matchup problems. And I think Tennessee is still maybe that Virginia game taught them a lot on how they can leverage that, because I think there was a point in that game when they built the lead up to 9 and really put Virginia on their heels that we started to see what this Tennessee team is capable of. And I think athlete for athlete, once again, much like Arkansas, but for different reasons, this Tennessee team has an unlimited ceiling. Like, they could get to the Final Four, and if they get that far, they would have to have 2 really big wins. That would be Iowa State and either Alabama or Michigan. If they get there, just think about the psychology there. Their confidence would be through the roof. So at that point, you can't count out a national championship for this team. And that's how big their ceiling is. But at the same time, they've had inconsistent play throughout the year in a couple of their performances, and you have to remember that's still very possible as well when they take on the Cyclones.
That is Rocco Miller. Rocco, I know it's going to be a fantastic weekend of basketball there in San Jose. Look forward to some really good games, and hopefully we can catch up with you again next week as some things will be set. We'll be even closer to the Final Four.
Looking forward to it. Anytime, guys. Always good to be on with you.
Thanks,
Thank you. That is Rocco Miller, our resident bracketologist from the Field of 68. Also, you can find his work there at bracketeer.org. He was on the Higginbotham Hotline. You deserve solutions that are built for you. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services.
Just when you thought everybody in the SEC, as far as basketball coaches, staying put, maybe not. We'll give you the latest next on Three Man Front.
We have been jam-packed with guests, but the second half of the show will be in your hands. 1-800-239-WJOX. We'll get to the text line as well, 205-834-9450. But Landrum, we had mentioned a little bit earlier, another story. It hasn't happened yet, but keep your eyes on the whole situation down at LSU with their basketball program.
No, it's interesting. The Will Wade, and he's at NC State, and the rumors about him returning to Baton Rouge had kind of died down. Looked like he was going to be in Raleigh for another year, but are they setting the stage in Baton Rouge for a triumphant return of one coach, Will Wade? Because now it appears that they have targeted the athletics director at McNeese State to come and be a part of the LSU athletic department. Not in the same capacity, but dealing with basketball. Very interesting.
Yeah, and a lot of people say that Will Wade would not come back to LSU unless his former athletics director at McNeese would somehow find his way to Baton Rouge.
And the new president came from McNeese, and he has a good relationship with Will Wade as well. It's only a matter of time. And reportedly, Matt McMahon, the head coach of LSU, has told assistants, go ahead and start looking for other jobs.
That's not a good sign.
No. Not at all. Think he's called Hubert Davis?
I don't know, maybe.
How did you handle this? He's going to get paid too.
Are you starting the rumor that Nate Oates is going to North Carolina State?
I think Nick Saban's going to help get him to LSU. I couldn't resist.